A very warm welcome to today's call. My name is Jennifer Schmitt, and we're talking about the new version of Therefore Online version 32. So as always, if you have any questions or comments, please use the Q&A function to ask me any questions. I'll be checking it periodically throughout the course of this webinar. Don't be shy, I love to hear from you. Like I just said, my name is Jennifer Schmitt. Most of you probably already know me, and many of you already know my voice, I'm sure. You can send me an email at jennifer.schmitt@therefore.net or email the team at media@therefore.net. So we're talking about the newest version of Therefore Online today. Therefore Online always has a new release in the fall, and we have the main release for Therefore On-Premises and Therefore Online every spring. So you can see here in the release cycle, it's always been the same way for some time now. And right now we're talking about this newest release for version 32, which is for Therefore Online only. It was first made available October 15th, and since then we've been taking turns updating each Therefore Online system for you. So the exact dates so far started out with Canada on October 16th, and then we just recently, 2 days ago, had October 28th, where Asia was updated. And then I think for this group of people here, you might also be interested for EU, which is November 4th coming up soon, and India is going to be November 11th. So always check status.thereforeonline.com for more information, and you can also subscribe to get any updates about your systems. Before I go into the details about the new features about Therefore Online version 32, I do have a brief announcement to make. The first is that the end user training is now available in Spanish and Espanol, so you can check that out, therefore.net/user training. We also launched the masterclass relatively recently, and it's available for all e-learning members. That's an advanced level course where you can see a realistic demo scenario and get some tips and tricks on how to use multiple Therefore features together. I've gotten really good feedback on it. So if you have an advanced level of knowledge and you've already completed several e-learning courses, then you can go ahead and take the masterclass. There are many prerequisites, but like I said, if you have the advanced level knowledge, this course is great for you. And finally, last but not least, is the refresher training. So the refresher training is an e-learning course all about the newest features in version 32. I'll be talking about these features very briefly today to give you an overview of what you can expect to see. But if you're interested in learning how to configure and use these features in detail, check out the refresher training. It's a very fun, fast course. You can probably finish it within 30 to 60 minutes. So what are the new features in this version? Well, we'll have new icons, updates to the web client, case and document history changes, sharing documents with workflows, online specific changes, and a few other things. So not a really long webinar here, so don't worry, we'll go through it really fast and it should be very interesting. First of all, I mentioned that we have new icons. As you can see here, I've placed a couple of icons where you can see what the old ones were on the right and the new ones are on the left. So as you can see here, this is what the new navigator looks like. When you update the newest version, you will get all of these newest icons. And you can see they just look quite similar to how they were in the past, but they are updated with the latest Microsoft guidelines, so they are up to date and they do look a little bit different than before. We also are updating the web client. So for those of you who have been around for quite some time, you may recall that we used to call it the dynamic web client and the classic web client. Now, as the dynamic web viewer is becoming the standard, we're just going to call it web client, make everyone's lives easier. So we have the web client, which is the one that's being updated and made new, and we still have the classic client available for those of you who want to continue using it. But as the new web client reaches feature parity, we will eventually discontinue the classic web client. So the web client is the new one with the new intuitive modern UI. And what are these new changes that we have in the new web client? Well, the first one that we have is we have updates to case management improvements. It is now possible to delete cases, create new cases on an ad hoc basis from within the web client, and move documents to another case. So what you can see here, this is the user interface, and you can see you can move the category, move a case category to another case category, select where it should be, for example. We also have enhancements to how you work with index data while using the web client. The first one is you can now use conditional mandatory fields. So this is a configuration that when a certain choice is made with one field, another field will become visible or mandatory. So as you can see in the screen here, when the preferred contact method of email is selected, the email address gets an asterisk because it becomes mandatory. That's one example. We also have the ability to use macros, which all of you are probably familiar with. Macros are, for example, when you're saving a new document, the name of the person who saved that document is automatically filled in, or if you have a date field, today's date is automatically filled in. And that just saves a lot of time and effort when you're saving documents to the system. That previously wasn't supported in the web client, but now it is. And really excitingly, you can now add new keywords on the fly. So if you're entering a keyword dictionary and a keyword item isn't available, you can just start typing, as you can see here, and then select add as new, and that new keyword item will be added to the list. So really convenient, really easy. And that's a huge improvement in my opinion. We also have improvements to searching and finding. So here you can see you can change the order of files in a document using drag and drop. So I've got these documents here and I'm changing the order in which the files are displayed. We also have next and previous document buttons here so that you can easily switch the view. So also really nice enhancement. And finally, we have settings in the avatar menu. So when you open up, therefore, here on the top right-hand corner, you have an avatar. You can then click on the down button, click settings, and that will allow you to change a bit how the web client interacts with you. So for example, the first thing that you can do is you can set the start page. Where will you land as soon as you open up the web client? For example, you want it to start with the dashboard, the repository, workflows and tasks, or your last visited page. Auto claim workflow instances. So for example, here you can see there's a slider. You can select if it's blue and that the workflow instances will be automatically claimed as soon as you open them, or you can set it to the other setting, which is that you will have to claim them after you open them. So it depends on how you prefer to work. Then we also have the ability to set the maximum number of search results that will be returned. So this is if you have if you're searching for a document and you have a lot of documents saved in your system, how many search results do you want to have returned? You can select any number between 100 and 5,000. And then here we also have, always show a warning when exceeding the limit. So if more than 2,000 search results would be returned, a warning will be displayed, and then you can say, I want to see them all. And the reason you would want to do this is just to reduce network traffic and to increase the speed at which the returns are brought back to you. So the more returns you want to see at once, the slower it could be. Good, and then you can also customize the language, date, and time formats. So here we go, we have use browser settings, you can select that, or you can also have the web client show settings that are different from your standard browser settings. You can also set the date and time format if you want it to be month, day, year, or in the US, they could have day, month, year, time format 24 hours or 12 hours with AM and PM, number format. Do you want to use commas or periods to delineate between dollars and cents, for example? And then just select save all changes to save them. So these things are really important. obviously because around the world, different countries have different standards of how these things are notated. So you can really set it precisely to fit your preferences. Yeah, and before I move on to the next feature, I just wanted to say dashboards are still there and they're amazing. So guys, don't forget about the dashboards. They're an efficient and accessible tool for easy reporting, and therefore, so you can have bar charts, the pie charts. So don't forget about the dashboards, because they really are a great tool that everyone can easily learn to use. All right, so now we're moving on to the next big feature. I don't see any questions in the chat, so I guess I'm doing a great job explaining everything. So the next one is we have significantly enhanced case and document history. So the case and document history is what you see here. This is a list of all of the actions or events that a specific document has gone through within therefore. So we're talking really about document changes. This has nothing to do with workflow, because that is one question that I get a lot. Case and document history is not related to workflow history at all. So one thing that you really keep in mind is that it used to just be, showing a very simple history only when big changes happened, when a document was saved or deleted. But now we have a huge amount of events that are recorded. And this gives better visibility, better traceability, better security, because you can really see what happened. What's really cool is we have also now added index data changes to the case and document history. So what you can see here is the old value is in parentheses and the new value is written in front. So you can now really see what index data was changed. You can see when a document was shared, when a shared link was accessed. If it was shared with a particular user, you would also see the user's name. You can also see if there's a stamp added, for example. So it's really a lot of information is now being placed in the case and document history. Moreover, you can also filter document history events. So you can see here, there's a little down button, you can select that, and then you can filter it. So if you don't want to see, for example, when a document is shared, you can unselect that, you can filter the history really easily to get a complete view and more easily find what you're looking for. Yeah, so here again is just a simple summary of everything I've mentioned. More events are being logged in the audit trail, including how index data was changed. Case histories now include individual document events as well as case events, and the event list can be filtered according to event type. So a really nice enhancement. Another enhancement that we have is it is now possible to share documents in workflows. So some of you might recall that we had first introduced a new feature, sharing documents, last year. And this allows you to make documents available to users who would usually not have access to those documents. Of course, there are restrictions. So only users who have permissions can share documents that are in categories that have been given permission to be shared. And if you're sharing documents on an ad hoc basis, on an individual basis, you only had the option to either share with a particular user, users in the company, or an anonymous link, which would have been accessible by anyone. And now it's possible to create a workflow using a workflow task to add a share link inside here. And the really nice thing is that we're using the send document workflow task, which is the email task, and we've just added additional options to it. So it's for those of you who are administrators and you're configuring workflows, this means it's really easy to learn how to use this because it's already part of a workflow task that you already know how to use very well. Basically, all you have to do is, it says here, you add in a share link. It's a macro. And then you can also add a custom password. So for example, the password could be a macro like the order ID or a social security number of a user or their email address, whatever you want. Or you could also have a fixed password as well. And then you can set an expiry date as well, how long is that share link valid before it expires. You can also select if you want to share it in the original format or as a PDF. One thing to keep in mind is that if you're sharing it over an email, every shared link will be anonymous, meaning the user does not have to log into the Therefore system. They just have to have the password. So it's a really good enhancement, and I think a lot of people will use it. One example that we have for this, for example, will be sharing pay slips. So you could send pay slips out to employees, and then the employees would have to enter their social security number in order to open up the link and view the pay slip. And that's actually what we do at Therefore. So, and that's maybe a simple scenario, but it's one that is for sure realistic, because that is how we get our pay slip information, and we have to enter that password. Moving on, we're now talking about some online specific changes here. So Therefore Online now supports SFTP, and it replaces FTPS. And you do not have to make that change if you don't want to, but keep in mind that once you switch to SFTP, there's no way back. Customers now have more control over the file types that they can be whitelisted or blacklisted on their own tenant. So for administrators, you can go into the settings and you can now allow certain types of files to be saved to Therefore Online that were previously blocked. This includes, for example, HTML files. There are ones that are continued to be blocked. That includes exe files. If you want to save exe files onto your Therefore Online system, you'd have to zip it before saving it. I did get a comment. Are there plans to restrict download for document sharing for everyone? You can. So you can 100%, that's a very good question. You can restrict document sharing. You can restrict it and disable it on the entire system if you like. You can disable it for certain users. You can disable it for categories. So it is really the job of the administrator to talk to the customer and then understand which categories should be shared, able to be shared, and which users should be able to enable sharing. So sharing is something that definitely can be restricted as much as you like. There is no obligation to use it. You can disable it for everyone. All you have to do is go into the security, and it's just in the security, you can disable it for all your users so that no one can do document sharing. So if you're concerned about that users would be sharing documents that they shouldn't be sharing, definitely disable it so that you don't have that concern. That's a great question. And we do talk about that in the e-learning under the security, it's mentioned, and then also where we talk about document sharing as well. So definitely check that out and make sure that you understand how to disable sharing, because it's super important to be able to have control over which documents and which users are sharing documents. All right, so what we have here, so moving back to the online specific changes, is we have the blocked extensions here under the advanced settings in the solution designer. And here is the blocked extensions you can see, and you can just simply delete blocked extensions that you think should be allowed, but certain ones are going to continue to be blocked. And if you try to remove a blocked extension that is mandatory, then you'll get an error message. All right, I got another question here from Katarina. Can the documents also be shared outside the company? Do the access authorizations have to be approved internally first? Very good question. So the answer is yes, documents can be shared outside the company if they're shared anonymously. And documents can only be shared anonymously if the user who does the sharing has permissions to share anonymously, and the category in which the documents are have been enabled to be able to be shared. So there is always multiple things that have to work together to allow that sharing to occur. So for example, if the administrator says, every manager in the company can share marketing content anonymously, because marketing content is made for the general population, there's nothing secretive about it, then that could be shared. But no company should enable, for example, everyone to share their accounting information, right? So like anything else, the specific use case has to be defined and then has to be configured so that it makes sense. Great question. Thank you very much, Katerina. So now moving on. Keep on asking questions, please. If you have any more questions, please let me know. And I love getting these questions. Moving on, other user and administrative changes. So solution designer administrators can now search for a specific user in the user list. Basically, you just open up your solution designer, and if there's a long user list, you can type the name of the user and the list will be edited as you type. You can also add a time zone setting. This allows administrators to set a specific time zone for the tenant. When you're updating the tenant, this is something that should be set automatically. The time zone setting basically helps ensure that we have the correct time zone and any date and time changes that are specific to where you are in the world. This allows us to have accurate timestamps, for example, for workflow tasks or for the document and case history. If you are really concerned about the time zone, this is something that you can check after the update, but in most cases, it should be correct. There are a few places in the world where the time zones are very, very important. For example, there's like states in the United States that are in one time zone, but a specific area doesn't observe like the time change, and so they have a different time zone setting, things like that. So if you're in an area where you think your time zone might be wrong, take a look, but in most cases, it's really going to be very close to being correct or correct. Next is when converting signed PDF, the visual representation of the digital signature will now be preserved. This one sounds a little bit complicated, but the idea is that if you have a e-signature on a document, you can see, when you open it up with PDF readers, you'll be able to see a signature when you go into the signature status, and there's oftentimes a visual representation of the signature as well. Basically, it just means when you're converting the document, the digital signature, the thing that you can't see, that will be removed because the document has been converted and changed, but the digital representation, like the visual representation of that signature, remains. This is really well explained in the refresher training, so go through the refresher training. I made a really good demo of this. Yeah. And then full details are, of course, available in the release notes and the refresher training. So once again, I'm going to encourage you all to go through the refresher training because I think it's very clear and it's not a lot. So you really can do it. And finally, we have a breaking change, which is the Therefore Online version 32 release will bring a client-side upgrade to 64-bit. That means clients that you get now are going to be 64-bit. There's nothing else that you have to do. It should all work perfectly fine, and there should be no big problems. The reason this was done is because 64-bit is considered state of the art, and there's a lot of reasons, a lot of toolkits that we work with that are only supporting 64-bit now. However, there are some really, really specific scenarios where you might have to continue using 32-bit. That's, for example, if you're using the API, not the web API, but the installed API, and it's all 32-bit, or you're using some tungsten automation products that are only available in 32-bit. So it's a really edge case scenarios. If you need to use 32-bit, contact our support team, and they'll be happy to give you 32-bit setups. But for most of us, we get 64-bit, which is state of the art. So yay, it's great for us. And that concludes my presentation of the new features in version 32. If you want to learn more, check out our website and our YouTube channel, where I will be uploading this webinar shortly. And of course, sign up for our newsletter, therefore.net/newsletter if you're not already part of the team. And don't forget to contact us with any questions or comments. I love hearing from you. I'm going to see if there's any more questions in the chat. I don't see any. But yeah, I'll hang around here for a few more minutes. And just to see if you guys are asking any more questions, let me know if we have any more questions coming. I don't see any. So I guess that's it then. Have a wonderful day. Merry, happy Halloween tomorrow for those of you who are celebrating, and I'll see you in the next one.